So to get started with our charcoal eye, I wanted to go over a couple materials that you'll be using whenever you are working on a charcoal project. The most important ones are going to be your white charcoal pencil, which is just a colored white charcoal. A compressed charcoal pencil, which is really great for getting super dark values in work. This is just a compressed charcoal, but just not in a pencil form, so it's a compressed charcoal stick. Vine charcoal, which is a very, very light form of charcoal, and it kind of wipes away very easily. The blending stumps that we have, it's okay if they're a little messy, because with charcoal, nothing remains clean after it's done. But these are really great for blending out compressed charcoal. That's probably my favorite way of blending it out. Q-tips, you could use that for vine charcoal. While the blending stump does work for that, I find that cotton balls or the Q-tips work really well. You'll need a normal eraser for the sketch part, a kneaded eraser. So a kneaded eraser is used for charcoal drawings, and it's self-cleaning, so it gets gummed up kind of easily as you're drawing, but it erases away the charcoal really well, and all you have to do to clean it off is just kind of knead it. This can also be used to create fine details in a work, so if there's hair or something that you're trying to draw, you could form this into a really nice line and use that to carve out details as well. So this is, yes, it's a tool, but it can also be used as a drawing tool as well, so those are handy to have. And then just a normal pencil just to get us all started. So in this video, all I'm going to go over, and I'll break it up into a couple parts, all I'm going to go over at the beginning is how to sketch out your eye. So we're going to be using toned paper. Toned paper is really nice because instead of it being flat white and having all of your highlights in it, it has a middle gray to it already. So whenever you're working with toned paper, white charcoal shows up really nicely on it. We've used white paper in the past, and once we flipped to the toned paper, I've really enjoyed it. So you should have your reference photo with you at home. That'll just help you give a little visual to what we're going to be doing. So we're just going to start by sketching out the eye. And you want your eye to take up a good amount of space, but you also want to leave some area at the top and a little bit at the bottom, because we will be adding like a crease above the eye. We're going to be adding a water line under the eye, and also eyelashes on the top and eyelashes on the bottom. So whenever you're sketching it, of course don't make it too small, but don't make it too large either, so then that way you can't fit those things in there, because those are going to become important elements as we're getting started. So I'm going to go through and just kind of draw an arch line. And then I'm going to go ahead and sketch underneath it. Kind of connect them to get the shape of the eye. We're going to add in the tear duct too, so it's going to look a little bit like a lemon with a stem on it to get started. We're also going to make sure we add in the pupil and the iris and any other major highlights or shadows. So this is going to be my eye shape, and then I'm going to go in and draw a pretty big circle that's going to serve as the iris of the eye. And I'll go through and clean this up in a little bit. I just want to see if I'm happy with that. I might scoop this in a little. So that's why we have our erasers handy. It's okay if you need to make any little fixes. So I'm just kind of cleaning up my lines a little bit. Whenever I first start to sketch, it's normally very gestural, and then Eventually I go in and clean stuff up, but it takes me a little while. Okay, so I might even go through and thin that out just a little bit more. And you want to pretend that this circle is kind of continuing on underneath the eyelid. So if that helps you, if it looks kind of like a wonky shape, you might need to just go through. You could even feel free to like even finish drawing out this sphere if that helps you kind of visualize things. Sometimes that has helped students in the past. So I'm just going to clean this up, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in my last final details on the inside of the eye. So the biggest thing that we're going to want to add in is the pupil. The pupil is going to be in the center of the eye. So think of this as a donut. You want to make sure the center of the pupil is kind of equidistant from the edges. You don't want it to be like really tiny up here because that just wouldn't make sense. So we'll just try our best to keep that kind of equidistant from your outside edges. I'm super kind of persnickety about these things. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like spheres. You just want them to look perfect, but we're only human. So get it as close to a good circle as you want it to be. I'm happy with that. So then we're also going to need to add in some indication of highlight areas and shadow areas. So on the top, there's going to be almost like a light reflection. You're going to draw that in as kind of like a flared out trapezoid. Then there's also going to be two little highlight areas over here. They're going to be cut by eyelashes eventually. There's a dark shadow on this side, so I just started by drawing kind of a straight line, and then you just want this to be pretty jagged as it goes down. Okay. And then the last thing is a highlighted area on the left side as well. So this is going to be sketched in as like a morphed rectangle. It's going to follow the curvature of the eye. And then if you want to add in a little indication of the iris or this like starburst area, you could add that in too. And now that I have that, I'm happy right there. So I'm going to take my compressed charcoal pencil, and I'm just going to go into it and color in the pupil. So if you have to do a layer or two of color, that's absolutely okay. I want to make sure that you guys get this pretty much as pitch black as you possibly can. I'm going to color around that highlighted shape. I don't want that to be dark. I want to try to add in some white to that later, along with the only black that'll be in there will be some indication of eyelashes. So I'm just going to go over this. And I'm going to begin filling this area in with the compressed charcoal. I apologize if this starts making like really squeaky sounds. I feel like whenever we're in class and we do this project, there's always like a symphony of these little squeakies, and some people think it's funny and some people just cringe at the sound of it. So at least you don't have to hear a whole symphony of squeakies if you're at home. So that kind of helps out a little bit. So I'm going to go through, finish this up, and then you're not going to leave it like that. You're going to need to blend it. So for compressed charcoal, I love to use a blending stump. So I'm just going to take that, blend that in very nicely. Take your time just so then that way your lines stay pretty smooth. It's okay if you get a little bit of smudging because it is charcoal. It's going to happen. Don't try to be too much of a perfectionist about this because charcoal just is its own type of animal whenever it comes to working with it. So you just have to kind of be happy within the mess, which is even hard for me to say because you guys know how clean I keep my room. But that's kind of the beauty of charcoal. So if you have a garbage can nearby, you might want to take the extra charcoal that's on here and dump it off. Also, another huge thing, so then that way your parents will let you stay in the house, is make sure you have a big piece of paper or a placemat or newspaper, something underneath your drawing, because the charcoal's going to get everywhere. It'll just help for easier cleanup later. Make sure that you're mindful of that as you're creating. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this off, and then I'll be back with our next couple of steps.